My mother rolled her eyes the second I stepped into that Boise courtroom. Not a quiet sigh, not a subtle glance. A full body, exaggerated eye roll. The kind that says, "Here comes the liar," as if I were the villain in her story. But then Judge Alan Redmond, midway through shuffling his papers, paused. He stared at me like he'd seen a ghost. "Wait," he said slowly, lowering his pen. "These allegations are against you. You're the defendant." My parents, Cynthia and Brent Walker, turned toward me with blank expressions. Clueless, completely unaware. They didn't recognize the woman standing before them. But that made what came next so much sweeter. Because I wasn't just the daughter they dumped 3 decades ago. I was the senior prosecutor who'd spent her life putting liars and leeches in prison. And I just walked into court prepared to ruin them. Let me take you back 33 years. I was 3 months old when Cynthia Walker decided motherhood cramped her aesthetic. She was 19, freshly graduated from high school in Boise, Idaho. Brent, my father, had just signed a rookie contract with the Seattle Seahawks. Their Instagram-perfect future didn't include midnight feedings or diaper blowouts. So one crisp October morning, they left me on the porch of my paternal grandparents' house in Spokane, Washington. They didn't say goodbye. My first memory is standing on a stool in Grandma Nadine's kitchen, fingers sticky with sugar, helping her make cinnamon rolls. She'd laugh when I spilled flour everywhere, saying, "A little mess just means more love." My grandfather, Judge Harrison Walker, used to come home still wearing his district court robes, pick me up without hesitation, and say, "Tell me everything you did today, Miss Ellie." And I did. Every worm I found, every mean girl at daycare, every made-up adventure. He listened like I was giving closing arguments in federal court. They never once badmouthed my parents. Not once. When I asked why my mom and dad didn't live with us, Grandma would say, "They're busy, sweetheart. They're doing big things." I believed her, because kind people are easier to believe. But as I got older, I saw the truth. No one came to my school plays. No one cheered for me at soccer games at Spokane Valley Park. My friends went to Disneyland with cousins. I went to the cemetery every spring to plant flowers on Grandma's parents' graves. Cynthia and Brent appeared like clockwork, if that clock was broken. A surprise Christmas visit here. A rushed birthday stop there. Cynthia would bring over-the-top gifts, iPads, expensive clothes, but never stayed for cake. She was always late for a meeting. Brent usually waited in the car. Once, Grandpa forced him inside for dinner. The silence could have cracked glass. They barely made it through the meal. Grandpa never forgave him for abandoning me. But here's the twist no one saw coming. For 21 years, my grandfather sent Cynthia $3,500 a month. Quietly, privately, over $900,000 in total. She took every cent and gave nothing back. Not a birthday call, not a graduation card, not a single "How's Ellie doing?" Nothing. Just more excuses, more money requests. For Brent's failed gym in Tacoma. His real estate flips that never flipped. His sports app that never launched. When Grandma Nadine died suddenly the week of Thanksgiving, while planting tulip bulbs in our backyard, I was 18 and already studying at Gonzaga University. I found Grandpa in the dirt holding those bulbs in his shaking hands. We didn't speak for hours. Just sat there. Just shattered. At the funeral, Cynthia and Brent came late and left early. No eulogy. No comfort. Nothing. That's when I stopped waiting for them to change. After that, Grandpa and I became a team. We cooked together on Sundays. Tried every recipe in Grandma's old tin box. And he taught me everything. Law, ethics, patience, power. By 26, I graduated top of my class from Gonzaga Law. Grandpa cried so hard during the ceremony, he forgot to record it. Brent sent me a Facebook thumbs-up emoji. Cynthia texted, "Good job. Hope you are happy." That was it. I became a prosecutor in Ada County. While others passed on tough cases, I dove in bank fraud, political corruption, elder abuse. The cases that mattered. I worked 80-hour weeks. No dating. No vacations. Just coffee, court, and Sunday dinner with Grandpa. One Sunday, Cynthia called. I hadn't spoken to her in 4 years. She wanted legal help. Brent had been sued for embezzling money from a gym franchise he co-owned. I said no. She called me ungrateful. When Grandpa died peacefully at 89, I was 33. I gave his eulogy in the same robe he used to wear in court. He left me everything. The Spokane house, worth over $900,000. His entire portfolio. Insurance. Cash. Over $3.2 million. And a letter. To Ellie, you earned every bit of this. Thank you for choosing me when others didn't. You were my daughter long before the law said so. I cried for hours. Then the lawyer handed me a second envelope. Bank records, emails, even printed voicemails from Cynthia demanding more money. My grandfather was brilliant. He knew they'd come crawling. Exactly 31 days later, they did. Cynthia and Brent Walker have filed a lawsuit. My attorney, Blake Hollis, told me. They're claiming undue influence. That you manipulated a dying man for his fortune. I laughed. I actually laughed. They thought I'd cower, that I'd fold, but they had no idea who I'd become. They'd raised a prosecutor, and I was about to destroy them. The courtroom smelled like cheap wood polish and old desperation. Cynthia came in dressed like a nun, black skirt suit, minimal makeup, clutching a pearl necklace like it held divine power. Brent shuffled behind her like a man who knew he'd already lost. Their lawyer, Weston Tully, was the kind of guy who wore fake concern like cologne. Your Honor, he began, voice oozing sympathy. We're here because a grieving father was manipulated in his final years. Miss Walker, he couldn't even call me Ellie. Isolated Judge Harrison Walker exploited his grief and coerced him into leaving her everything. Judge Redmond leaned back, unimpressed. Weston continued, painting Cynthia as a misunderstood daughter, separated by cruel parents, desperate to reconnect, and robbed of closure by me. When it was Blake's turn, he didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. Your Honor, this case is not about grief. It's about greed. He clicked a remote, and a projector screen blinked to life. Photos, documents, calendar entries, 21 years of financial transactions, $3,500 sent every month to Cynthia. Emails from Brent begging for more. My entire childhood reduced to 2-line emails and missed birthdays. And then Blake dropped the bomb. A recording. Grandpa's voice, clear, deliberate, speaking to his estate attorney just 6 months before his death. I've supported Cynthia more than I ever supported Ellie financially. But Ellie supported me with something far more valuable, her time, her love. She's my legacy, not because of blood, but because of consistency. The courtroom went dead silent. Cynthia was the first to testify. She pulled out a tissue before she even sat down. He was everything to me, she sniffled. I called all the time. Ellie wouldn't let me speak to him. She poisoned him against me. Blake stood, calm, calculated. Mrs. Walker, in the last 10 years of your father's life, how many times did you visit? Cynthia hesitated. I had work. And Brent's surgeries. Answer the question. Maybe 5. He showed her grandpa's journal. It was 4, totaling less than 10 hours in a decade. And yet you accepted over $400,000 from him in that time. She looked at her lawyer. I didn't ask for it. You requested more than 30 times by email. Brent was worse. When asked to name a single event from my life he attended, he stammered, high school. Maybe. The projector screen lit up again. My high school graduation. My college. My law school. All with Grandpa in the front row. Not a single frame of Brent. He started blaming his bad back from football, but Blake cut him off. You managed to show up to ask for money to start your supplement company, didn't you? But then came the twist. Blake called an unexpected witness, Stacy Rivers, Cynthia's former best friend and former assistant manager at a salon in Meridian. She looked nervous until she started speaking. Cynthia used to brag about how she was going to drain her dad's accounts. Said she deserved it for birthing that kid. She even called Ellie a safety net once. Said if things went bad, she'd just guilt her into helping. Cynthia's mouth dropped open. You're lying. But it was too late. The final nail? Blake called me to the stand. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I told the truth. Every Sunday, for 15 years, I sat with my grandfather. Sometimes we cooked. Sometimes we argued. But I was there. They weren't. And now they want to rewrite history because there's money involved. Weston tried to rattle me. Isn't it true you stood to gain from his death? I looked him straight in the eye. I stood to lose the only parent I ever had. The money was never the point. But now, it's the only language your clients understand. Judge Redmond didn't even need a recess. He looked at Cynthia and Brent like they were gum on his shoe. This court finds zero evidence of undue influence. The rule stands. Attorneys' fees will be paid by the plaintiffs, whose claims were not only meritless, but malicious. Then he turned to me. Miss Walker, your grandfather raised you well. The gavel cracked like thunder. Outside, Cynthia rushed up to me. Ellie, please. We're still your parents. No, I said. You were donors. Biology. That's all. She reached for me, but I stepped back. You don't get to take from me twice. I already survived the first abandonment. I won't survive another. I turned and walked away. But it wasn't over yet, because a few months later, someone else came forward. A person who would flip the story again. 3 months after the trial, I thought it was over. The house was mine. The estate settled. Cynthia and Brent had slithered back to whatever failure they called life. I was finally breathing again, sleeping without waking in the middle of the night, expecting another legal ambush. Then I got a call from my grandfather's estate attorney. Ellie, there's something you need to come in and see. A letter. One we were instructed to deliver only after the lawsuit was resolved. The letter was in Grandpa's handwriting. Shaky, but unmistakable. Inside was a single sentence, underlined 3 times. Find Madison Beck. There was no address. No explanation. Just a name. And one line at the bottom. What I never told you may matter more than anything I ever did. I stared at the letter for hours. Madison Beck. The name meant nothing. But my gut, my prosecutor's instinct, knew better. I launched a quiet search. Not legal. Not official. Just personal. It took 3 weeks, a few favors from a friend in the Seattle County Clerk's office, and one lucky break at a records office in Sandpoint, Idaho. There it was. A birth certificate. Madison Lee Beck. Born 1996. Mother, Rebecca Beck. Father, Harrison Walker. My grandfather, Madison, was 27. A high school English teacher in Missoula, Montana. I drove there without calling. I needed to see her face, to know if it was true. When she opened the door, I swear my heart stopped. She had Grandpa's eyes, his posture, even the way she tilted her head, exactly like him when he was trying to size up a situation. She didn't know who I was. Not yet. We sat down in a quiet diner just outside town. She listened as I explained everything, carefully, gently, with all the facts and none of the venom. When I told her who her father was, her hands trembled. I always thought something didn't add up, she whispered. My mom said he was a secret regret. She never told me his name. I gave her the letter, watched her read it with tears in her eyes. Then I showed her the updated trust. Grandpa had left her something. It wasn't money. It was land. A sprawling 60-acre piece of property near Priest Lake that he'd purchased quietly in 2002. No one knew, not even me. He'd set it aside for her. But here's where the story twists again. Because when we visited the property, buried deep in a locked filing cabinet in the old cabin on site, we found a second will, dated 5 years before he died. In it, he named both of us equal heirs. I was stunned. Madison was speechless. So I went back to Blake, the estate attorney. He reviewed the document for hours, then looked up. It's legitimate. This changes things. It meant the trial I'd won wasn't even over, because Grandpa never updated this older will when he created the newer one. Legally, we had to reconcile them. But I wasn't angry. Madison hadn't betrayed anyone. She hadn't known, hadn't asked for anything. She was kind, intelligent, grounded. I saw in her what Grandpa must have seen in me at her age, a spark hidden under a mountain of abandonment. And for the first time in my life, I chose family. I filed a motion myself to split the estate with Madison. Cynthia and Brent tried to object, saying, "You see, she manipulated everything after all." The judge denied them with visible disgust. Madison moved to Spokane 6 months later. She lives in Grandpa's house now. We cook together every Sunday. And the last tulip bulbs we planted them together. But the final twist? A letter arrived 2 years later from a woman named Angela Ruiz in New Mexico. She claimed to have been engaged to Grandpa during the 80s. Said they lost touch. Said he wrote her weekly letters for years and kept them all. Inside her envelope, a photo of Grandpa holding a baby boy, his son, my uncle, alive, out there, possibly unaware. The photo Angela Ruiz sent me showed Grandpa younger, maybe mid-30s, cradling a baby wrapped in a blue flannel blanket. The handwriting on the back read, "For my son, Eli, one day I'll be brave enough to stay. HW." I stared at that line until it blurred. My grandfather, the man who raised me to value truth, had a secret son he never spoke of. Not once. Not in stories. Not in regrets. Why? Angela's letter explained the rest. She met Harrison Walker while he was clerking in Albuquerque after law school. They had a brief but serious relationship. When she got pregnant, he panicked, told her he couldn't compromise his future. But he never stopped writing. She never replied. Except now, because Eli Ruiz had grown up, never knowing who his father really was. And he wanted to meet me. We met in Santa Fe, a quiet cafe tucked behind the city's historic plaza. When he walked in, I couldn't breathe. He was the spitting image of Grandpa in his early court photos. Same brow, same jawline, same quiet intelligence. Eli was a school principal, married, 3 kids. He wasn't bitter. He was curious. He wrote me letters. Hundreds, he said softly. My mom never let me read them growing up. I didn't even know his name until after she died. He slid a leather-bound journal across the table. Inside were pages of Grandpa's letters, confessions, apologies, even stories about me. He'd watched me grow through newspaper clippings, trial coverage, award ceremonies. He'd written, "Ellie is my second chance, even if I don't deserve one." I broke down right there, in front of Eli, in front of the world. Back in Spokane, I added Eli's name to the estate trust. Split 3 ways. No lawyers. No courtroom. Cynthia and Brent tried again to challenge it. This time, we countersued. For emotional distress. For harassment. For legal costs from the original trial. The judge sided with us. Froze their accounts. Seized assets. They lost everything. House, car, whatever dignity they still clung to. Cynthia left Idaho. Rumor says she bartends in Reno. Brent, arrested for check fraud last fall. As for us, Eli visits every summer with his kids. Madison got married last year. I walk her down the aisle. We stood under blooming tulips. And for the first time, I wasn't the abandoned daughter anymore. I was a sister, an aunt, a judge, a survivor. Finale. The courtroom renaming 20 years after Grandpa's death. The state of Idaho renamed the district courthouse in Spokane. The Honorable Harrison Walker Justice Center. At the ceremony, I gave the keynote. I said, family isn't built in a hospital. It's built across decades. Through dinners, through forgiveness, through quiet loyalty. Blood is an accident, but love is a choice. Before leaving, I walked to Grandpa's grave. I planted tulip bulbs again. But this time, I wasn't alone. Madison stood beside me. Eli stood beside her. 3 branches from a man the world thought died alone. But he didn't. He left a family. One he never expected. But one that showed up every Sunday.